One thing that struck me this time when I was listening to your budget speech was the absence of any mention of disinvestment or asset monetization. Why was that? Why has that at least seeming to take a backseat in the last year or so?
No, it is still there in the budget documents.
Right.
It may not have been a part of my speech, but it is in the appendix to the speech. It's also in the rest of the documents where we give the actual numbers and the activities which are going on and so on. See, the cabinet has after all taken a call that certain companies will have to be privatized, and that motion has the approval of the authority concerned, which is the cabinet. So the process goes on. But of course, because we'll have to also see when is the best time for it to be done, given the fact that we have already done the homework and kept it ready for just going out to the market, this consumes a lot of time, this preparatory time.
Absolutely.
Post that is when we literally watch out for the market and then put it out. So both the factors, preparation and best time in the market, influence when you put it out. The process is on many of these items.
So you're saying it's a question of timing? The commitment to privatization remains as strong as
Absolutely, particularly on those where the cabinet has already given the go-ahead.
So last year you'd spoken about the privatization of 2 PSU banks. What happened to that? Have you identified the banks? Is the process on?
This is what is happening. The process is on. The amendments will have to happen in the Act, right. And then also look at the market, and then it'll have to go through.
So it is very much on?
Of course it's on, because the cabinet has given the approval.
Right. So Nirmala ji, the export sector is suffering because of slowdown in major markets. What are the options to mitigate the impact of weak international economies for us today?
See, it has two-sided problem. One, you have to make up for those handicaps that Indian exporters face, whether in logistics, whether it is the cost of electricity, or whether it is any other inherent handicap that they may have in terms of labor, or in terms of the place they are located in, and so on. So for these inefficiencies because of certain handicaps, it is necessary to give them some kind of a redressal, in the sense give them some incentive, or the RODTEP like scheme which is already on. So that's one thing. But it's also the usual way in which you would say, if a market is difficult, look for newer markets. If a market is difficult, see what you want to do about making yourself attractive for that market. You do road shows, or you spend money in branding yourself, or you appoint such agents who will tell us about the tastes in that and preferences in that market, and so on. And looking for another market, you will obviously spend some money and go on road shows, open up avenues there. But today, the typical problem that you face, not just you, meaning Indian exporters, but many face, is the lack of demand in those markets because of recession, which are normally our marketplaces where we send our products, whether it's your textile, whether it is your diamonds, whether it's your gems and jewelry, whether it is your tea, whether it's your basmati rice, and so on. So I'm taking those which are symbolic of India. There are others, components, auto components, electronic parts, which you very well manufacture today. So when the recession has hit these economies, and when I say these economies, not just those in which you're present, but even for the newer markets which you might otherwise aim at, all of them are hit by it. So that's where the problem gets even more compounded, and we'll have to work together with the exporters to see how best we can help it.
Okay. India's trade deficit with China has hit $100 billion in 2022, $100 billion in 2022. Imports keep rising, exports to China are falling. Is this situation acceptable to us? How do we really reverse this trend?
No country would want its exports to languish and imports to balloon with any trading partner. But the issue has two-pronged answers. We should be conscious not to have to consume things which come, overly from only one destination. But that doesn't mean I'm imposing any view. We should also be conscious of buying it from elsewhere if it is necessary at all. And for India's exports, it has to also look at ways in which market can be expanded in that territory or in any other geographical jurisdiction. So it is always a twin game. It's like a pair of scissors. You have to look at both the sides.
You know, what do you make of this growing clamor, especially in some opposition rule states like Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, to bring back the old pension scheme? You know, in fact, Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis ji, has also spoken about this. He said he'll look into the matter. What is the government's view on this?
See, when I talk about government's view, I don't want to speak as though this government view or that government's view. Who, after all, implemented it for the first time? After the decisions were taken at different layers of officialdom, the political dispensations which brought this in was not just NDA. UPA was actively those who brought it forward. The entire question of introduction of OPS, new pension scheme, was during the Congress's period. They didn't at that time talk about rollback. They didn't at that time talk about any, bringing the old system back or anything of that. So now, if without adequate looking into of what it means, are we paying the current generation of pensioners by loading it onto the future generation? And how far, because in government the arguments will quickly come back to you saying, but when government borrows, it's also leaving a burden on the future generation and so on. But that's the argument. Would we all look at what is a reasonable balance? Would we look at what is it that we are leaving for our generations to come? Yes, you will have to have an economy running, you will borrow to a certain extent. But unless we have a complete understanding of this, the fiscal implication, the fiscal health of the state, not just today, for the next decades, to rush to a conclusion may not be. Right. And I was glad to hear in one of the book release programs that I attended, Sri Montek Singh Aluwalia talk about it. It's not I'm taking up something which emerged out of a private conversation. Right. In a book release, publicly, when asked, he did respond. So it's not as if now we are talking on political lines. We have to talk on Indian economy, its strength, not just Indian economy as Government of India, but every state's economy, and then take a call on it.
That's right.